Hey there, intellectuals. I want to take a moment to thank our incredible sponsor, NextStage AI. NextStage AI is transforming the way government contractors approach business development, capture management, and pipeline development activities. Whether you're a small startup or a seasoned prime contractor, NextStage AI is your central go to tool for streamlining your operations, optimizing proposal strategies, and enhancing competitive advantage. NextStage AI is a comprehensive CRM, pipeline, and BD tool designed to aid in the effective collaboration of the entire business development lifecycle, from your opportunity identification, qualification, capture, to proposal tracking. It empowers every organization to make faster and more informed bid decisions. Make NextStage AI your strategic partner. Visit NextStage AI to learn more and see how they can elevate your business. Thank you, Next Stage, for your unwavering support of Tan's 2 cents. Now, let's get to today's episode.
The Best of T2C, Compilations. Episode 8, C-Suite Series, Chief Strategy Officer. Segment 2, Strategic Pitfalls and Triumphs, Lessons from the Field.
So, great insights for us to all kind of think about. And I think it's really clear that this role is really kind of dynamic, more dynamic than I think a lot of people would really assume, which brings me to like my next point. And we've been kind of touching on this during this discussion already, is reflecting on Metaphase's journey. Can you share like a strategic pivot that didn't quite go as planned, but taught you an invaluable lesson? I think you mentioned something about, the GWACs and things like that. And I think the point that I'm trying to make with this question is that I think we expect a lot from our C-suite, that they're somehow infallible, right? And that puts not only a huge amount of pressure, but no one's clairvoyant. No one can predict the future. No one can predict how the market is going to go. No one can predict how the customer is going to, the customer could say one thing one day and decide because of funding or shutdowns or whatever to do something totally different. We've all kind of seen that. But there are times where you're going to have a strategy, or you're going to, think that this is going to be the next hottest thing, and it's going to fail. But like, how do you fail, learn from it, pick up, and then try again?
I don't think leaders make less bad decisions as they get more experience. They just respond to them faster,
Right.
So I can give you a couple examples here, but one, I mentioned RPA, and there was this excitement around RPA for a while. It was before AI, the real big AI push.
AI, ML. Yeah, exactly.
And a lot of companies kind of went all in, and they said, we're going to become an RPA company. And we were pretty excited about it too. We went and got all these people trained, and we were moving towards it. And then quickly saw that RPA is an exciting technology, but there wasn't enough of a services component to that work to sustain a business, and certainly not to sustain a business of the size that we were at that time, which was maybe 100 employees or something.
And it's small.
And so we started to move in this direction, and then quickly, pivoted back to other capabilities and said RPA can be a small component of what we do, but we can't make that our focus. And I think that was a good decision in hindsight. But I love too what you said, about leadership not being infallible, right?
Segment 3, Fostering Innovation and Agility, a CSO's Playbook.
So much so, we do an onboarding discussion for new employees. In fact, I have one later today, where we have an hour-long session about culture. And one of the slides in there is specifically about what we ask our employees to expect of us as the founders and leadership team. And the term that we use is authenticity, not perfection. Expect of us authenticity, but not perfection. Because if you're expecting perfection, you're going to be very disappointed, right? And it's just this idea that you can expect for transparency. You can expect for us to admit when we're wrong, or for us to pivot when we've made a mistake. But to expect perfection is just not realistic. And if you build a culture where people are expected to be perfect, or when leadership tries to pretend that they are perfect, what ends up happening is when those mistakes happen, instead of accepting them and admitting them, you're pointing fingers at someone else, or you're, making excuses, or you're this or that. And that just leads to a bad place, in my opinion. So I loved what you shared.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I can't keep up with you on this conversation because I don't know. I think it's because you and I are reading from the same page, but it really does kind of lead us into our next discussion topic, is that all these lessons that we're learning really kind of paves for future success. So it's not you're failing and you're losing ground. You're not losing ground. It just didn't work. Now and now you can build on and move forward. So I want to kind of explore a little bit more about how learning and continual try and fail cycle can foster innovation, because innovation and agility, I think, are two key elements to staying ahead.
Episode 9, Navigating the Seas of GovCon Strategies for Success. Segment 3, Leveraging Technology and Data for Competitive Advantage.
I think it's really important when an organization is reflective of your end customer or the end user, right? You understand their perspective so much better than if you were coming in blind and not understanding why you do this. And a couple of things that you mentioned is, one of my mantras last year was emphasizing value over importance. And in a world where everything is important, we deem everything as being important. We don't do a good enough job with really understanding or demonstrating what's the value in it, because there needs to be a value for you to kind of understand or translate that into. And from the procurement landscape in GovCon, I've seen it transition in the last 20 plus years that I've been involved, moving in, I think, in the right direction. We've moved towards butts and seats, transactional type of contracts to really solutions-based type of, contracts. What is your solution? What is your proposed solution? You can't fake that until you make it, type of thing. And so I think that's good, because I think it elevates industry to kind of come to the table instead of just saying, give me a great widget or a product or a technology. But if I don't understand from the buyer's perspective how that's going to either keep my warfighter safe or provide reliable data for data's sake is just, that's useless to me, right? What am I going to do with that? How do I, how can you ensure the security and the veracity of that data, and translate it into what am I going to do with that then? And trying to paint that picture, I think is a really great, I think it's a great evolution in the transformation for GovCon industry in general.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you. I've definitely seen progress in the right direction. We need more. And I think, well, I'll be clear. I believe that there is still a very large gap between a large number of folks on the government side embracing that new way of thinking, that industry is here to help us deliver solutions. And we're not talking about big industry from 10 years ago where was mostly butts and seats, staff augmentation. No, now there might be some of that because the government needs people to help them, fill the gaps that the government can't fill. But there's, I think, a lack of broader awareness on the government side of all the value that industry can deliver today. If we can just get the right conversations, if we can tell the stories about how we are and can help execute on missions. There are a lot of closed mindsets, Ton. It's unfortunate, but it is true. And I'm the first one to admit, when I was a government civilian, after I retired from the military, I became a GS-15 on the Navy CIO's staff and the end-to-end 6 staff in the Pentagon. And I remember being coached about how to engage with industry. And that coaching went something like this. Don't do it. Not worth your time. Let someone, down the chain do that. You have more important things to do. And that was just the way it was. That's how I was encouraged. That's how I was taught. And now, of course, if I could wind the clock back, and I talk about this sometimes when people say, what would you do differently? What I would do differently is not do that. I would go back and be more open-minded, opened my door to vendors or industry partners who wanted to teach me about how the Navy could move forward with technology. So there's more of that today than there was 10 years ago, but there still isn't enough, because there's this big gap in the federal government's understanding and trust that industry actually does have something to offer of value
Yeah.
right now. But we can't push it onto the government. The government needs to be asking for it and open. And we need more leaders out talking about that, and not just talking, but showing by their actions that they really do want to partner with industry. Let's discuss, how we can work together. And it it's something that is really infuriating to see sometimes from the industry side, but I understand there are people who have been doing the same job for a really long time. They're very good at it. They're American patriots, and they're putting their whole life into, serving the government. We just need to bring them along a little bit more, a little bit faster. To the world today is more modern and technology driven than it was. And so let's have a conversation.
Segment 6, Navigating Transition Challenges.
So for your question about, what were the hurdles in my various transitions, and then what are some lessons? I talked a little bit about it. Some of the hurdles have been the knowledge required to go do something different. If you're, for me and for a lot of people, if you're not going to go do something different or add new challenges, then why transition at all? Why not just keep doing the same thing because you want to stay in your comfort zone? But for many of us, and certainly those who are ambitious and want to succeed and do more and more in our careers and in our personal lives, we've got to be continuously learning new things or we stagnate. So the hurdle, I would say, was, oh my God, how am I going to learn all this technology? But the lesson is, you don't need to learn all the technology. You tap into networks of people who have that knowledge. You share what you know. I share what I know with someone, and they share what they know with me. And together we both grow. And now I feel like I'm smart enough. I know enough about AI that I can go, talk and have a reasonable conversation, or I can talk to a client, or I can help deliver a solution. But a phrase that I learned in the military, but I'm sure other people learned it all over, in other places, is perfection is the enemy of good enough. And for perfectionists, which are many of us who are type A and we like to get everything right, that can be a really hard thing to do until you realize it's exhausting trying to get everything perfect, and you never will. So I've learned to do, and I don't mean good enough from like a barely good enough. I mean, hey, I've done my best. I know 80%. It's time to move on and execute. So that was kind of a hurdle and a lesson. One big lesson I've learned through the arc of my career, and I think is relevant, is to have a circle of people who, I call them a board of directors, other people, board of advisors, or just a friend group, circle of trust, whatever you want to call it. People who will tell you the truth, even though it may hurt, but will also really encourage you when you feel like you can't, move on. You and I have a common friend who is on my board, Dr. Lisa Palmer. She's wonderful. I have, a few others, and they're there to be a support mechanism, but also to be a sounding board. And I think without that, and better that they are from different perspectives of
Yes.
growing up, political views, business experience, educational experience, because an echo chamber of surrounding yourself by all people who think you're
Yeah.
awesome is also not helpful. So I've gotten pretty good at picking people who will be honest with me and who will help me. And that's the big lesson, is don't try to do it yourself, and certainly don't surround yourself with people who only agree with you all the time, because you're not going to learn anything, and you're going to be part of the problem faster than you are part of the solution. I think you can apply that to any transition, but constantly be looking for things that are new and that scare you a little bit, and be willing to learn them, and be yourself, and be open to other people to teach. Those are the big lessons. And again, they go to any transition, whether you're going from military to government, or government to starting your own thing. That's what I want to do. I take inspiration from people like you, Tan, from Dr. Lisa, and others who have taken the leap. You did it a while ago, but taken the leap into, I know I can bring more to the world on my own. I'll do that eventually, but for now, I'm perfectly happy learning everything I can about GovCon at Mantech, but also just continuously learning from people around me. And it's that simple. I think those are the big lessons that have worked for me, and that I think can work for a lot of people in different parts of wherever they are in their life and whatever kind of transition they're going through.
Episode 10, Expectation versus Reality, the truth about teaming with Alaskan Native companies. Segment 3, the true value of teaming with ANCs beyond the stereotypes.
Based on your experience, Heather, what should businesses understand and prepare to make the most of these collaborations? And you've touched on a couple of things, but and I think one of the things that I agree with you on, and I always work with my customers on, is not only setting realistic goals, but to really understand how to communicate and what to communicate. Like you said, don't go in and be an open book and, just spill the beans on everything. When I have discovery calls, I always tell customers, listen, we are not under an NDA. I cannot unhear something. Not that I would, you know me. I am like very, very ethical. It's not that I would go out there and intentionally like undermine or like, steal your contract or whatever. But again, once I hear it, it's influencing my thought process
Yeah.
or my strategy or my approach to things. So yeah, like loose lips kind of shinks ships type of, things. But what should small businesses do or be aware of to make these collaborations, as successful as possible?
So I'd go in expecting that you're going to be treated like any other small business or a partner would. And so if you're going in with an opportunity, competitive or sole source, and you're a critical part of that team, be a critical part of that team. At least offer it
Show
up.
up.
Yeah, show
Yeah.
up and put the effort in. Like, come in expected to work, come in expected to participate in proposals. The partners I talk to is, what I tell them is, if a client allows me to bring you to the table for an alpha negotiation series, I will bring you to the table. But you have to also remember we're the prime. And so,
You've got privity. And I think that's very hard to, it's very hard to release because small business, brought this to you. They may or not be a customer of
right.
mine,
Yep.
right? And so I think there's this expectation or this bravado or ego or whatever that I brought you the kill. I should lead the discussion.
Mhm.
But really, if it is a set aside or a sole source or, however it's being procured, and they're not eligible to do that, Chronos has privity, and that's
Yes.
very hard to communicate.
Yep. And it's just the reality. Now, I'm not looking to take away your relationship, with the client. Like, that is something that's beneficial. Why would, to me, it doesn't make sense. However, it's a business relationship. And so our subcontracts agreement, I mean, we address them just like anybody else's in regards to the type of conversations or communications you can have as a sub with the government staff. If you don't have that in a subcontract agreement, that you are issuing to a subcontractor, you should relook at that. It's pretty standard, because that is there to protect privity. We have over the years I've gotten calls directly from clients saying, do you know that this subcontractor president just walked in my office and I don't want to see them again? Like, no, I didn't, but it will never, like, I will address that and it'll come out. And those are hard things to do. But at the end of the day, it's literally 50-50. The program team and the KO will be like, no, it's a team thing. We love the approach. We want to talk to everybody. Final negotiations always rest with the prime, always. And so, that's my signature. That's our corporate risk that we're taking to do that. And we have to make the best decision for the corporation and for the whole team and the client. Sometimes the government will say, we will not talk to any subs at all. They're not interested in it because they don't want to, they're just not interested in doing it. The only people they will talk to are the prime team members. I understand it. That's really just based off the prerogative. But I find personally the government's open to understanding the solutions. They want the team involved so they can really understand it, but they'll keep the negotiations to themselves. Realistic expectations. Expect that your rates or what you do on a sole source contract will have to be completely transparent. So when we talk transparency of solution, the government has the right, it's in the FAR, that they can look at everything broken down in your rates for pricing. They're able to do that. Sole source pricing is not sanitized. It is unsanitized pricing with a complete justification of everything, every rate you have. If you're a team member on that, you should anticipate that you will have to lay that out for the government, whether it's sealed just to them, but you're gonna have to justify it and show that it's competitive, because just because it's a sole source doesn't mean you're getting everything you want with the highest rates possible. It has to be reasonable, all of it, aligned to the solution. I think sometimes, I'm saying that as like manage your expectations, because you're expected to be transparent with everyone involved. And so nothing's going to slip through the cracks and get it, because we have to give that all to the government as well. Other expectation management is sometimes things just don't work out. Maybe you want 30% work share, but how it turns out is that the assigned scope is like 15 or 20. Make a call. Don't draw a hard line in the sand. Have a reasonable, mature, professional conversation about why this is happening, and then make decisions. Do I want to work with this company again, or do I not? If you don't. There's no, you have to make business decisions about it. Another interesting expectation I'll just put out there is if you bring an opportunity or you're part of an opportunity with a company, you should not expect that every opportunity that comes to that company that you'll be part of it. Which is it's something I've just noticed over the years, that sometimes we have partners who might call us and say, hey, we've got a great opportunity, to do this. And we're like fairly young, we get it. But then if I get a contract somewhere else in a totally different scope area that we have capability in, but they don't, sometimes there's this underlying expectation that I'll bring them on. And,
hey, that's my client. We brought you in. Yeah.
Hey, do this. That's not how it works. But again, have the conversations from the get-go. I would much rather know. We work with the company I won't name here, a different way. They're a great company. Hi, we sell a lot of things. Well, I procure a lot of things. Let's see how we can do. We'll put you in the mix of vendors. In the initial meeting, I would really like to grow into services in this area, this area, and this area. They're doing all the right activities, but they're not sideswiping me hey, you just got a contract for this customer doing what we said we wanted to. That's right. We did. But they're not coming in that way. What they're doing is bringing new opportunities. Hi, do you know this customer? This is someone we've forged relationships with, and we'd love to talk to them with you together. Or do you have advice for us on how to help us grow this capability? So it really is a partnership. There really is no hand out begging for work, just doing that. And, the companies that we're talking about here, these Super A's, they're not out just there begging for work either. They're bringing the capability because it's what's expected of them from the government. The government doesn't want to hear anyone call them, no matter who you are or what your set aside is, with an opening line of, hi, I'm an 8A, can I have a sole source? They don't want to hear that. So I think that's the part of, set the expectation that you're going to have to work. You have to have a capability and you're expected to show up.
Segment 5, Navigating the Future. Evolving Perspectives on ANC Partnerships.
Huge. Most AAs cannot stand alone with their own past performance to say, hi, we have 3 past performances of that size, scope, complexity, and we're a great partner. You need partners that can help you do that. But, when we're looking at all the trends, it's getting harder. The number of 80 contracts is reducing. Just in general, it's a trend. It's going down. We're seeing things moving to vehicles. A lot of vehicles put restrictions. So C production, one affiliate. That's it. That an affiliate is, we say that word and everyone assumes affiliate past performance and all these things. Oh, we had a great thing for Super 8As. That's not just an AA thing. It's not just a Super 8A thing. If you're an affiliate, that means if you're a company who owns another company, that other company is an affiliate to you. Only one of you can be on that vehicle. Doesn't matter it doesn't matter if you're an 8A or not. But affiliate past performance, same thing. Limitation on using affiliate past performance, not super common, but you see it from time to time. Also, not just a Super 8A thing. That is for any company that owns another company, that's your affiliate. And a lot of companies buy companies to access their client base and their past performance. So
there's a lot of companies that are like that, for example, Khaki, knowing which reference that they're going to use from which company they've bought, which affiliate is, it's a disaster sometimes. And so, that's a very common problem that is not specific to you.
Episode 11, Strategies for Success. navigating the OASI Plus ecosystem. Segment 3, marketing within OASI Plus.
So, what are some of your advice for being competitive and standing out?
Yeah. So yes, but first, something is a little bit different with OASIS that maybe wasn't before. There's actually a contract obligation that you sign where you have to comply for certain marketing efforts. So for instance, certain things that you put on your website regarding the OASIS contract vehicle, a connection to the actual contract, the listing of the OASIS program manager and contracting officer, that's part of your company. There is standard verbiage. I mean, all of that's actually in the contract, and it says, if you don't comply, we have the right to revoke your contract, your OASIS contract. So from a marketing perspective, you need to pay attention to the fine print and know that you are in compliance. And the easiest way to do that, frankly, is to steal what other people have done. So you start with the large businesses who are always in compliance, see how they kind of arrange their contract vehicles, then some of the mid-tier companies, and take a look and start looking now and figuring out what how they're doing that, so that you can mirror that website connection. The easiest thing is to create a contract vehicles tab on your website and then follow the directions that way. But scope out your competition and your competitors who are already on the vehicle, see how they're doing it, and seeing what you write down literally what you need to do in order to be compliant moving forward. So that's the contractual marketing piece. The other piece of it is go back to the shared interest group. The OSIG provides companies with the opportunity they have their own website and they have information about the OASIS contract vehicle. I'm assuming they're going to do the same for OASIS Plus. And they give you the marketing slick on how to sell OASIS, like what the key benefits are and how to use it and what the contract access fee will be, which is standardized now, by the way, for OASIS Plus 1.15, which is great. No range like it is now. But it's going to give you that information, but it also provides you an opportunity of, again, being able to stand out by submitting your own marketing one sheet to highlight your company and your capabilities. And it has to be focused on the NAICS codes associated with your OASIS Plus contracts. So it has to be tailor-made. And that information goes on the website, but also GSA uses that information as a marketing pitch to government customers. Like, here are companies that are on this vehicle, and here's their marketing information. So they do a pretty good job in helping market for you. But if you don't meet those deadlines of when they ask for those marketing slicks, you're not going to get on the website until they open it up again, because the OSIG is made up of volunteers. They say it's due by the 15th of June. Have it done by the 15th of June. There is no, they cut it off. It's like, oh, we'll open it again, next March. So be cognizant of those deadlines and take them seriously for other people who are going to market for you.
Yeah.
So the other piece is then the why you. Trying to figure out and, identify and articulate your differentiating factors is always important. But for OASIS, you are competing with companies who have been on this vehicle for 10 years. So you really need to figure out why you are different and why, out of all the other companies, why you stand out in the crowd, which you have to do every day. Right? It's a smaller venue, but you should be doing that anyway. But I do advise for this in particular, if you're really going to maximize this opportunity, find the money and the investment and get support from GovCon marketing agencies or consultants who are experts in this area to really help with your messaging, figuring out, why you are different. But before you go to them, I suggest trying to figure out your pipeline first. So you know what target agencies you have, and then go, if you can, and then go and get some advice from marketing experts.
Segment 5. Strategies for success in OASI Plus.
So based on your experience, what are the key strategies for success in OASI Plus? And how can companies stay competitive?
So again, marketing is my passion. That's where I started my roots umpteen years ago, but investing in marketing resources to stand out from the crowd and make that a priority. Invest in a BD or OASI program manager who can focus on OASI more than 60% of the time. Hire someone who is already known and trusted entity within the ecosystem that kind of knows the ropes, so you don't have to start from scratch. And it is really difficult, again, for small businesses to say, they still kind of, if they're small, really small, they're trying as the business owner to try to also be the OASI program manager. And again, that's when you're like, I don't have enough time to go to the OSIG. I don't have enough time to go to these industry days. I don't have time. And you don't. So if you really want to make this go, invest in program managers and business development who knows the landscape, who knows how to work this system, because it is a system like everything else, who has potentially, existing contracts. And for this particular one, if you can't, hire someone that has the potential and the outgoingness to learn it and learn it quickly. So that is difficult. Have a clear focus on your target customers and create your pipeline that aligns with your past performance. That's kind of my tagline. Go back to association, the OSIC. You have to network. If I said it 3 times fast correctly, that would be a miracle, but I did not. So network. Know who you know as the primes and which domains they prime. So remember, we're starting off with 7 different domains. You are going to get a list of all of the prime contract holders within each domain. So the OASI PM and the capture manager, there's some wiggle room as to which domain opportunities are going to land. Like, is it really management and advisory, or is it intelligence? Is it engineering, or is it more process management? All of that, and that's where your capture manager, your BD person comes into play. And if it shows up in a different domain, do you have the network or establish competitive relationships that you can get on a team? Look, we shaped it for management advisory. It went to engineering. We've done all this work. We really want to go on a team, and can we partner? Or a lot of things like create your team up front. To, if you think they could go either domain 1, 3, or 5, kind of strategically create a team where all 3 of those domains are covered, so that when you put the team forward, you have, wherever it falls, your team and your story and your approach can be fairly seamless. The only thing that changes is the prime.
Yeah.
I think that piece of OASI, and who do that well, do it really, really well.
Episode 13, Bid Smart, Mastering Cost Realism in GovCon Proposals. Segment 2, Mastering the Art of Cost Realism and Reasonableness.
Yeah, don't assume someone else will ask. But I think the point I was going to make was, if you ask the question, are you going to be giving away your competitive advantage? It's very rare in that situation. If anything, I don't want to take this discussion away from what we're talking about in cost evaluations, but Q&As is a great way to ghost your competitors, right? You start asking about, well, are you only going to, are you only going to consider technical approaches that involve quantum computing or AI or whatever, so there's a way to do that. But when it comes to cost assumptions, let's not go too far astray. Understanding what you're going to walk yourself into. Can I take over the legacy software that's there? Will have rights? Anything that could potentially impact cost. You need to ask those questions if it's not clearly written within any of the documentation out in the solicitation. And when you start, and if you don't get that satisfactory answer in those Q&As, lay out those assumptions. But look, we tried asking this question, you answered it this way. So this is the approach we took in terms of getting access to a facility, having access to software, materials, whatever it may be. So explaining assumptions, explaining those great bases of estimate. A great basis of estimate is not, I took subject matter expert judgment, and this is what I thought it would cost. I get it. Yeah, I get it. That has to be used. And when you look at the many guidebooks that are out there on cost estimating, there's like 7 or 8 techniques. And guess which technique is the least reliable in cost estimating? It's that subject matter expert. And don't get me wrong, especially in R&D and type environments where it's like, until I get my hands on this stuff and start playing with it, I really don't know. And when you get to that level, do your best to try to explain, like, listen, I worked at this other site doing something somewhat similar, and this is what happened. And so we took that basis and picked it up and said, this is the best comparable example I have. So you often can't go out to a vendor or a subcontractor and be like, hey, build me this widget that I need under this prime contract. And then you picked up that quote and threw it in the proposal. Yeah, that's the traditional way to propose many ODC or subcontract costs. But there's plenty of efforts where you're going to have to really swag it, right? But explain how you got there is certainly the way to do it. So for realism and reasonableness, it's detailed explanations, meeting all the requirements of the RFP. There's a reason for why the government asks for all that stuff. And, that could be a separate discussion about, when they give you that exhaustive list that, provide me, your GSA list, although that should be public, so they shouldn't ask you for that. Give me your subcontract proposals, your ODC quotes and material quotes, whatever it may be. Obviously make it as easy as possible. Make it traceable. Often they have that cross-reference matrix. Yeah. That's really, really important. If they don't ask you for that cross-reference matrix, put it in yourself so there's no mistaking that you did not meet the requirements of those RFP Section L instructions. So map those out, show how you met all that, and then take that extra step and put yourself in the shoe of me. I know, as glamorous it is, say, like, if I was evaluating this objectively, can I understand how you got to the cost that you did? It's a very basic question, but often the question you go, wait a second, I've always come up with my prices. We've always been doing it this way. And we have this unique, cost estimating relationship that unless I tell you how it all works, you're not going to be able to do it on your own. So you got to lead them down the road so they can do it independently.
Segment 3, Behind the Strategy, the cost team's tactical approach.
You go through that and you might not be able to demonstrate it to a past performance or a past project where, the history clearly shows it as something higher. You can still go lower and say, listen, this is how we're going to do this. And if we're not going to make it, I'm actually going to cap those costs. So those are two different approaches you can take. So you can leave the management challenge as is and leave the pricing and, cross your fingers that the government says, I don't know how likely that is. I'll make an adjustment. Or they'll say, I'll buy off on it and leave it as is. It's often a 50-50 split. But if you want the government to, no matter what, to accept it as is, cap it. That means, listen, I am willing to sign on the contract that my G&A rate will not exceed X percent. Oh, wow. The government then cannot make a probable cost adjustment higher than that cap. If you sign, I will not accept a G&A rate above this proposed rate. that is one way to prevent a probable cost adjustment. So if you want a strategy, those are the two ways to do it.
So use the
something-
word cap.
Use the word cap. Use
Okay. Words matter,
ceiling,
people.
Ceiling, expressly say, I will not exceed this cap. And if you say that, they should not make an adjustment to that area. So that is one strategy.
Okay.
You're like, listen, no matter what happens, I lose this other big contract. I have another contract up for recompete next year. And I feel so good about that I'll keep that. So my G&A rate doesn't double next year. Well, I'm not going to do that to you. I'm honorable. I have integrity, whatever it takes. Again, back to my point when we started this section, like, these are people, they need to believe you. So go through that rationale so they feel better about the decisions they make in terms of their evaluation. So there's hard caps, and then there's soft caps, like challenges and the like, saying, listen, this is how we're going to get costs down. I'm going to award my people incentive bonuses if they keep this, whatever it takes to make you go, oh yeah, they really are going to try to make this happen and we're going to win as a result. Sharing award fee, there's another one for you. If that, it's that kind of a contract, sharing that award fee with your subcontractors and passing that along as, profit distribution and not as a cost to your subcontracts. That's another unique strategy I have seen successfully used by offers. I mean, it's a pain in the butt to track on the back end when you do win the contract that way. And so you don't end up claiming those shared award fees as costs. So you got to
So how does that work? How does that work for the government customer if you propose that? Because I've never heard of that.
Oh, look at that. I got something unique for you. All right, go me. Yeah, so like, you get your award fee board meets and you get a great rating and you get a great allocation of fee. You can say, listen, I'm going to take 1% of that fee and say, if I get a certain score, I can literally pick that up and share it with my subcontract to do whatever they want with that. So it's truly, you would show it as a cost on your books, but you won't be, but it's a non-billable cost to the government. So yeah.
Okay.
So it's an additional way to incentivize your subs to be a part of your team. And I'm not going to say it always works, but it's a unique approach to incentivizing your teaming partners to really, to deliver. I would never recommend an award fee subcontract. That's even more levels of complexity. It's bad enough to even just do the cost plus part, but then do the award part. That can get not so ideal. But when your prime contract is an award fee, that could work. I'm not going to, I'm sure you can get on a bunch of COOs, CEOs who have tried employing this and they can talk about their war stories. And I'm not going to try to go there, but I can just tell you from a costing perspective, that's one way to help incentivize your subs to propose a lower fee to start out with, knowing that, listen, you do a good job, I'm going to throw you an extra 1%.